Welcome back to the Sports Fix, and we're now joined by the Sydney Morning Herald's chief NRL writer, Adam Pengilly is his name. Adam, great to have you on the flow. How are you?
G'day, Alice. Thanks for having us, mate. Yeah, very excited. Looking forward to the NRL season starting tonight. It's been a bit of a countdown since last year's grand final, but we're finally ready to go.
Yeah, a lot's happened in the country since the Winter Codes last finished up last year. So this long off-season, I'm sure it's got you very excited.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Usually by the time we get to the end of the season, I must admit, being a journalist or someone sort of involved and around the game, and you're a bit tiring and a bit fatigued by the end of the season once it comes to that first week in October. But it's nice to have a bit of freshen up, had a bit of time with the family, watch a bit of cricket. The Ashes was great this year, even though it was very much a one-sided contest, but I think it's time to get it back into the footy.
Could not agree more, and we'll get back into it later in the interview regarding all the content on offer at the Sydney Morning Herald. Make sure you check all that out. But before we do, let's get straight into the swing of things. Adam, speaking about tonight's opener, this will be Panthers playing the Sea Eagles. So how do you see this one panning out?
Yeah, the big story of the week, Ellis, has been the availability of Nathan Cleary, the Penrith halfback, who obviously won the Clive Churchill medal as the best player on the ground in the grand final last year. He had off-season shoulder surgery, quite major surgery. He's not going to play tonight and won't play for the first 3 weeks. So it's a huge blow for the Panthers. Their trial form wasn't great either. They got absolutely spanked by the Parramatta Eagles 36-0 a couple of weeks ago, albeit they had a very weakened team without Nathan Cleary and a number of other players. Having said that, their first game back at Penrith for a long time, given the COVID interruptions to the season last year. It'll be a full house out there at Penrith Park. We know Tom Trbojevic won the Dally M medal, the best player in the competition for Manly last year. I think Penrith just might get the job done in a close game tonight.
There we go. Well, we are talking about the current reigning premiers. Now, is there, I guess, added pressure on them knowing that they're going into this season, Penrith defending that title? And what do you make of the Sea Eagles overall going into this season? Because obviously a fourth place finish last time out. They'll be hoping for a bit of an improved run in 2022.
Yeah, no doubt, Alice. Firstly on Penrith, well, obviously there's going to be added pressure. They're going to be the hunted this year, aren't they, given what they achieved last year. It's very hard, history shows, to win back-to-back comps in the NRL, and the only team that's done it in the last sort of 20-odd years was the Roosters in 2018 and 2019. So history says that once you win a comp, it's extremely hard to back it up and win it the next year. Having said that, they've got a lot of guys at the right age, still in the prime of their careers, so it's not as if a lot of their squad's sort of getting over the hill, so they should be fine in that regard. My concern's probably more to the depth of their squad. They've lost probably 5 of the top 18 that played in the grand final last year who have gone to other clubs. When you're looking at guys like Kurt Capel, Matt Burton, were both super important players to them last year. You throw in Paul Momirovski, Tyrone May there as well. It's a fair chunk out of that grand final side last year. So that's going to be a hard task for them to replace that. I still think they'll be there and thereabouts in the top 4, but whether they can win the comp again is a different question. As you mentioned on Manly, well, it all revolves around Tom Trbojevic, doesn't it? He's their star player, probably the best player in the competition. He had a phenomenal season last year. You couldn't believe the season he had last year with the amount of tries he scored, the amount of tries he set up after missing the first 5 or 6 weeks with a hamstring problem. He virtually dragged them single-handedly into the top 4 and into the preliminary final. So is he going to get any better? It's hard to say yes, given what he achieved last year, but the one thing for Manly is got a very settled squad. Haven't had too many gains or losses in the player market over the off-season. So I think Des Hasler, their coach, will expect them to be in the top 4 again. Whether they can take that next step and make a grand final remains to be seen.
In the early kickoff tomorrow evening, we've got the Raiders hosting the Sharks, and then following that, the Broncos will be in action against the Rabbitohs. Who are your tips for these 2 games, Adam?
Yeah, I'm tipping the Sharkies, Ellis. The big story of the week has been Craig Fitzgibbon, their coach, about to coach his first game in NRL level, contracting COVID early this week from his young son. Is going to be forced to miss the game, won't be travelling down to Canberra from Sydney to watch that match. He'll be watching from his living room. I still think the Sharks will probably have a little bit too much for the Raiders in the early game. A couple of really nice recruits in Nico Hines and Dale Finucane from Melbourne had a lot of that team. I think the Sharks have a really good year. I expect them to beat the Raiders in the first game. And the second game, Brisbane v South, well, we're all hoping to see Adam Reynolds, the former South Sydney halfback who was the captain, led them to the grand final last year, lining up for the Broncos against his old team. But again, unfortunately, he's contracted COVID and will be missing that match. South, I don't think it'll be as strong as what they were last year. I still don't have enough to beat the Broncos there on Friday night.
And in action on Saturday, we've got a number of games. Roosters, they'll be hosting the Knights. Warriors playing at home to the Dragons. The West Tigers in the 7:05 kickoff SA time, 7:35 Eastern time. They host the Storm. The Eels in action against the Titans on Sunday, along with the Cowboys rounding out the weekend's action against the Bulldogs. Who's going to be the pick of the bunch here in terms of games on offer for you, Adam? And how do you see it all panning out?
Yeah, looking forward to the Roosters and Knights, the first game on Saturday. Obviously, the Roosters had a horrendous injury toll last year, Ellis, and they struggled to keep their best team on the park for large parts of the year. The fact they made it to the second week of the finals was a phenomenal effort. I think with the fully fit squad, with Luke Keary back calling the shots from halfback, I expect them to beat the Knights. I think the Dragons might be able to upset the Warriors. Their trial form's been outstanding, the Dragons. A lot of astute purchases over the last 6 to 12 months with Jaden Sewer and Moses Sully coming to the club. I think they can beat the Warriors. Craig Bellamy in the Storm, his record is absolutely outstanding in round one. I don't think he's ever lost a round one game in charge of Melbourne for the last 20 years. I know they've got a lot of key players out against the Tigers. I still don't know if they'll beat the Tigers. And then a couple of games on Sunday. I'm looking forward to the Gold Coast coming down to Sydney and take on the Eels. I think the Eels are going to be in for a massive year. It's actually my premiership fancy. I think the Eels will beat the Gold Coast Titans to start the year. And a lot of pressure on the Bulldogs. Had a very, very disappointing last year. Trent Barrett, their coach, seems to be under increasing pressure week in, week out. I think they can just get past the Cowboys up there in Townsville to start the season, albeit they trialled abysmally against the Sharks a couple of weeks ago.
And is it too early to ask you, Adam, about who's your sort of tip for the top four in 2022?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eels, Ellis. I know they've been one of those sort of nearly teams. They always sort of around the mark, but always seem to fade when it comes to the back end of the season and don't reserve their best performances for the finals. But last year, they probably should have beaten the eventual premiers Penrith in the second week of the finals. It was a rip-roaring game. Went backwards and forwards. They lost only by 2 points. I think that gave them a lot of confidence to suggest they can actually go on with it and do something this year. Their squad's very settled. I think Mitchell Moses should be in the prime of his career right now. Dylan Brown has a better year. I'm tipping Parramatta to win the comp. No doubt the Roosters, Melbourne and Penrith will be there and thereabouts and challenging in that top four. But I'm going to stick with the Eels to win the competition this year and break a drought spanning all the way back to 1986.
Speaking to Adam Pengilly from the Sydney Morning Herald here on the Flow Sports Fix. Adam, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? Obviously, you are across the NRL competition as much as anyone is, based over there at the Sydney Morning Herald. So talk to us about how that's all been going for you over the last several years, and I guess when your love and affinity for the code sort of first arose.
Yeah, I grew up watching football from a very young age, Ellis. I had no other choice with my family. My dad was always a big St George Dragons fan, so it was virtually just born and bred into me that I watched rugby league from a very young age and had the red V on from basically when I was a toddler, essentially. So I've loved watching the sport for many, many years, and I consider it a great privilege to be able to be paid to write about it, to talk about it, to go to games and watch it from fancy media boxes and everything like that. I still say it's probably one of the best jobs in the world. So I love it. And the Sydney Morning Herald, what a great team of guys who try and produce as much coverage and content as we possibly can around the NRL, and try and produce a daily paper. It's always got a challenge, but we love it. It's great fun, and we get to talk about rugby league all the time. What more can you ask for? Absolutely. Great work. And just inform our listeners about what the latest content offerings are as far as today goes, with the season obviously kicking off tonight. Yeah, so we'll have full reports from the first game of the season tonight between the Panthers and Seagulls in tomorrow's paper online later tonight. Lots of breaking news. The NRL has finalised its judiciary code, thankfully, only hours before the start of the season kickoff, so some major changes there. We'll have previews and any other news all across the weekend from the opening round of games. Adam Pengilly from the Sydney Morning Herald. It's been great speaking to you. Enjoy all the upcoming NRL action, and we'll certainly endeavour to get you back on the Flow Sports Fix very soon. Thanks, Ellis. Appreciate it, mate. Still to come on the Sports Fix, Ricky Lambert and Courtney McIntyre. I reckon they might be throwing each other under the bus in a fun little segment where they'll be discussing some ordinary moments on the sports field when it comes to those kinds of memories where you'd really wish you could hit the old Control Z. That plus an exclusive chat with Paramount Plus and Network 10's Ben Homer on all things A-League. 3 games played overnight, of course. We'll be catching up with him. Don't go anywhere.